The wind battered the windows as if something or someone was trying to get inside. The old house groaned and creaked like a ship in a storm. I lay in bed, wrapped in my blanket, trying to breathe quietly. The noises of this house were familiar, but now, alone, every sound felt sharp, like claws reaching out from the dark. I hadn't always been afraid, not until I was left here alone. Adam and I moved into this house 4 years ago, to a small, dying town in rural Pennsylvania. It was a town built on coal mining, though the mines had long since shut down. Most of the jobs were gone, and with them, any chance of prosperity. Adam was an engineer, hired to oversee some project involving the old mines. The work was hard, but it paid well, and the house had been cheap. Life wasn't perfect, but it was steady. Then he disappeared. It happened on an ordinary morning. Adam left for work in his usual way, toolbox in hand, boots scuffing the driveway, a quick smile over his shoulder before getting into his truck. By evening, he hadn't returned. I called his colleagues. None of them had seen him. He left early, they said. The police were indifferent. He's an adult, the officer said, waving it off. People disappear for all kinds of reasons. Give it a couple of days. A couple of days turned into weeks. No one knew where Adam had gone. And then, 3 months later, in the dead of night, I heard it, the sound of a key turning in the front door. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The noise was so faint, so unnatural. Then came the footsteps, heavy, deliberate. I froze in bed, paralyzed as the steps moved through the house, climbed the stairs, and stopped just outside my bedroom door. The handle turned and I wanted to scream, but my throat felt like it was caught in a vice. And then he was there. "Emma," Adam said, his voice low, his face almost too calm. I threw myself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. His hands were ice cold. "Where were you?" I stammered. I thought you were." "It doesn't matter," he interrupted. "I'm back now. That's all that matters." He told me the company had reassigned him to a new role, something to do with logistics and deliveries. It didn't make sense, but I didn't question it. I was too relieved to have him home. The next day, Adam brought a bag full of letters home. He spread them across the kitchen table, sorting through them with mechanical efficiency. Then, he tossed about 2 dozen into the small iron bin by the stove. "Burn these," he said, his tone sharp, almost commanding. "And don't read them, just destroy them." When he left for work, I hesitated only a moment before opening the letters. They were addressed to women in town, each marked with the seal of the mining company. They were condolence letters. One of them was addressed to me. My hands shook as I read it. The letter said Adam had been declared missing after a collapse at the mines. His colleagues assumed he was dead. No body had been recovered. Panic gripped me as I heard his truck pull into the driveway. I shoved the letters back into the bin and set them alight, though not before slipping one, the letter addressed to our neighbor Jess, into my pocket. That night, I lay awake pretending to sleep. I felt Adam's gaze on me, cold and unblinking, for what felt like hours. At some point, he got up and left the room. From downstairs, I heard him muttering. It was his voice, but not his voice, low, guttural, speaking a language I didn't recognize. The next morning, he left again, refusing breakfast as always. I went straight to Jess's house, clutching the letter in my trembling hand. When she opened the door, she smiled in a way that made my stomach churn. "Reg came home last night," she exclaimed, her voice almost too bright. I froze. Her husband, Reg, had also been missing since the same mine collapse. "Where is he now?" I asked. "He's working," she said cheerfully. "Adam got him a job at the post office." Before I could say another word, Adam appeared. "Emma," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade, "you shouldn't bother Jess." I turned to argue, but the look on Jess's face stopped me cold. She seemed afraid, her eyes darting to Adam as if she didn't dare speak. That evening, a police officer came to the house, a detective following up on Adam's disappearance. He asked to see him. "He's home now," I said hesitantly. Adam appeared in the doorway, his face stretched into a cold, empty smile. "Detective," he said smoothly, "there's no need for concern." The detective insisted on looking around the house. Adam led him in, and then the detective vanished. One moment he was in the hallway, the next he was gone. I called out for him, my voice shaking, but there was no response. When I turned back, Adam was standing in the shadows, his smile impossibly wide. "We're alone now, Emma," he said. "Forever." I know now that Adam isn't Adam. Not anymore. Neither is Reg. Neither are the other husbands and fathers who've returned. Whatever they were doing in those mines, whatever ancient thing they disturbed, it didn't let them leave, not entirely. The men who came back aren't alive. There's something else, bound to whatever force was awakened underground, and they're bringing more. Every night, I hear Adam pacing the house, his steps heavy, relentless. He watches me as I sleep, or pretend to, and when I see him standing in the doorway, his eyes like empty wells, I know one thing. I'll never leave this house. Not alive.